Your agency designated representatives are Director Shanika Dixon, your Assistant County Administrative Officer Joel Begay, slowed down here, your Human Resources Manager Sabrina Mendez, and Susan Carter. There is conference with your legal counsel under Government Code 54956.9, subsection D1. There are 3 existing litigation matters. The first is Anita Ross versus County of Madera. That's MCV 072774. Valley Groundwater Coalition versus County of Madera, MCV 087677, and Madera County Superior Court, MCV 086218 case, and that's Cardoza et al. Versus the County of Madera Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And the last item is under Government Code 54957. There's a public employee employment discussion for the position of Director of Behavioral Health Services.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public that have a comment regarding the closed session items? Hearing and seeing none, we will move into closed session. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to a regular meeting of the Madera County Board of Supervisors. Today is October 1st, 2024. Council, is there any reportable action out of closed session?
Chair, there's no reportable action, but I would like to announce that there are additional items that weren't able to be addressed in the first hour of closed session. So I would request that you call a second session, and just in case I didn't name the case on 2B, Anita Ross versus County of Madera, I wanted to add that to the record as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we open and close the meeting in memory of various individuals. Is there anybody, one of my colleagues, would like to remember at this time? Very good. We will open with the invocation in Pledge of Allegiance. Is Pastor Alex Ortiz from Central Valley Church. Yes, go ahead and come on up to the microphone there and press the button so you see the green light. Everybody stand, please.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity we have to govern our county well. We pray for wisdom for our leadership, that you would guide these leaders in making wise decisions to manage the affairs of this county, Lord. Pray for any issues that are brought today, that you would have your hand in it, God, and you would guide us as we navigate these situations. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity we have today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to public comment. As a reminder, the first 15 minutes of each regular session are set aside for members of the public to address the board on any matter under the jurisdiction of the board, but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take action on any items presented under public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium and state their name and county of residence for the record. Very good. Come on up.
Good morning, Sarah BOS, Public Health Director, and I'm joined by Assistant Public Health Director Stephanie Nathan. This is her last official day in the office, serving as our Assistant Public Health Director. And so I just wanted to take a few moments to highlight what Stephanie has been doing to serve the community members of Madera County. Stephanie oversaw several department sections in our department. It's included WIC, our maternal child adolescent health program, community wellness, which are a lot of our policy and systems change programs around chronic disease, epidemiology, our department human resources, as well as our EPIC section, which includes equity, emergency preparedness, improvement, accreditation, and our communications. I want to highlight just two major things that Stephanie did during her time that all of you will be very familiar with. And the first is that she served as our public information officer during COVID. During that entire over 2-year period of time, she led a brilliant, amazing team of community members and staff members and doing what I counted in the S drive as more than 13 distinct communications campaigns. You might remember the farm worker campaign, don't feel great, isolate, do more of what you love, and your shot at fun, among many, many others. And I want to just acknowledge that under Stephanie's leadership, that team was recognized multiple times by the California Department of Public Health for their communications excellence throughout COVID. The second thing I want to highlight is Stephanie's leadership in department accreditation. You have all heard very much about public health accreditation and the many, many different components that are included in that, and our community health assessment, our community health improvement plan, a robust strategic plan, and leading the implementation of many of those items through a team, of course. Personally, I will miss Stephanie tremendously, of course. I have complete trust in her competence and in her judgment, And I don't take that for granted. It's been a rare relationship between the two of us and so important through the season that we've experienced for sure. She's an excellent thought partner and strategist. And Stephanie makes work fun. I think most of us know that about her. So please join me in wishing Stephanie the very best in her next chapter as she steps into the role of President and CEO of United Way for Fresno and Madera counties. So we will continue to be working together, which is super awesome. And I want to give Stephanie the opportunity to say a few words.
All right, good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'll be very brief. I just want to thank you all for your support. I worked in another county previously, so I do not take for granted what it means to have a supportive board, a supportive CAO, and supportive leadership. I've had a great time the last 6 years working under Sarah and Dr. Paul. They have put ultimate trust in me and allowed me to try different things, some that were successful, some that weren't so successful. I joke that we are trauma bonded through COVID, and that we'll never really forget that time. I'm really excited about the next phase, the next adventure. It was a hard decision, actually, even though it's a great opportunity because I have had such a good time here. But I know there's been some big accomplishments, and I'm very confident that the department's going to continue to do great things. But again, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephanie and Agnes, and your Director of Natural Water and Natural Resources. Just making you aware of a letter that we received. It's from DWR, and it's a comment on our annual reports. This is the first communication we've received on annual reports for 4 years. So it's new information. It does ask for more information on our projects and our management actions, including our allocation. Asks for more documentation on different beneficial users and requests that one annual report is submitted rather than one by GSP, in which case there were 4. The letter is dated May 31st, but we just found it. One of our consultants found it on the DWR portal. If anyone would like to publicly access that, it is under status on the annual reports page. I will put extra copies up there, but I just want to stress that this is a fairly normal communication to receive from the state. They often provide feedback. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay. In this case, it's 4 years, but these are all things that need to be addressed in the next annual report turned in April 2025, and it's very doable. Thank you.
You.
Am I up?
Yes.
Morning. My name is John Pirro. I'm an Awani resident, last 23 years in Madera. I want to address a non-controversial issue, the Measure T on the November 5th ballot. In April 2023, the executive director of the MCTC and the TA was asked if they were planning a citizens initiative. She emphatically said no. A citizens initiative, as you know, requires only a simple majority to pass, unlike the 2/3 majority for the county proposed measure. In 2024, county government officials drafted the Measure T ordinance and the ballot language. When internal polling showed a slim chance of passing at a 2/3 threshold, a consultant hired in 2023 for outreach and education for Measure T turned it into a citizens initiative. He filed the necessary paperwork, formed a political action committee, which received an $84,000 and change non-monetary donation from an LLC with undisclosed donors. There was no transparency on where this money came from. This funding was used for professional signature gathering, and it qualified for the initiative, or the initiative qualified. Once qualified, more donors contributed, raising almost $250,000, including $5,000 from Supervisor Poitras's committee and $100,000 from the Chichansi Indian tribe, which ironically doesn't even pay sales tax. Of 14 major donors, 12 are from outside Madera, all from developers and businesses. Yet Madera residents bear the burden of this proposed sales tax. Although legal, this process raises concerns. Lowering the threshold for raising taxes from 2/3 to a simple majority significantly alters the balance of power in government, posing a grave danger to government overreach. This approach is mirrored in Prop 5 on the November 5th ballot, which would allow local bond measures for anything: public safety, infrastructure, education, affordable housing, to pass with just 55%. The state can't even account for the 24 billion spent on homelessness over the last 5 years. Do you really want your property taxes raised by a 55% threshold? Thomas Jefferson warned that a pure democracy is merely mob rule, where 50% plus one overrides the rest. He called it a mobocracy. If this citizens' initiative is successful, and this is the danger, it will become the new de facto standard for raising any new Madera taxes by a simple majority vote. Citizens will flee the county just like many are fleeing California because of high tax rates. Is this the future that we want for Madera County? I hope not. If you agree, vote no on this citizen version of Measure T. And let's work on a better plan by improving the ordinance and expenditure plan for 2026 that maintains the 2/3 threshold. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Jared with Public Works. Wanted to give a quick update on a couple things related to Public Works. First off, I'm happy to announce that we've finished the last of the major storm damage repairs that were on the books for our storms of 2023, which is the Road 26 location north of Avenue 21. So that is done and open as of last week. All in all, that's about $2.6 million worth of repair work that was done, primarily up in the mountain area. That doesn't include our snow removal costs. That doesn't include all the other things that went with those storm events. So, but we're glad to have those done and moving forward with closing out some of those things to get them into FEMA for reimbursement, working with the OES folks. The other announcement I wanted to make is our Public Works team was successful in submitting several applications for Federal Highway Bridge Program funding. The 2024 cycle was opened and we submitted approximately 15 applications for repair, replacement, or rehabilitation of various bridges in the county, totaling about $44 million in projects. We learned on the 17th, just a couple weeks ago, that we were successful in getting those projects accepted into the program. So we have about, again, $44 million worth of projects that have been accepted in that program. That program will cover about 88% of the cost. So we're looking at about $39 million of federal funding that will come to the county for those projects, and local match wise about $5 million. So pretty good return on investment for those. We do have 9 more applications that are being considered for the 2026 funding cycle. So we hope to hear from Caltrans soon on those, but big thanks to Hayden Hinkle and Steve Dice for doing the legwork to get all those applications together and get them turned in. 15 applications being approved in the program is pretty unheard of. I know a lot of other counties that apply for a lot of projects, and honestly, we were hoping for maybe a few to be accepted, and pretty excited when we found out there was more. So big thanks to the team and looking forward to getting these projects done. This will be, I should clarify, this will be projects that will happen over the next 2 to 10 years. They're spread out, so not all going to happen quickly, but nonetheless, we will have the funding to do that. So thank you.
Very good. Great news, Supervisor.
Yeah, Jared, was the Feingold Creek Bridge, I know we had some issues with that about 2 years ago. Was that included in the list of projects, or?
The Feingold Creek Bridge.
Yeah, if you recall, about 2 years ago, we had some issues there. The bridge failed. We had to go out there, do some emergency work.
Is that that the one up on 210?
O'Neill's? Correct, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that one actually is already in the program. We're working on that project now.
Okay.
So that one's already been accepted and moving through design.
Okay.
So yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Anybody online? Okay, very good. We will now move on to the consent calendar. I'd like to mention that AA has been removed from consideration under this consent calendar. Are there any other items that one of my colleagues would like to have pulled for their discussion? Yes.
I have a question on AG.
AG, okay. Any others? All right, go ahead, Supervisor.
Yeah, I see understand this is to develop rules for domestic well mitigation. And, in this, will there be public process and will the farming, community be engaged?
Yes, absolutely. This is facilitation services
Okay.
through DWR's SB 552 grant. And it provides for discussions, public meetings, public input, and integrating that into a process for domestic well mitigation in the Madera subbasin.
Right, and the board will approve those rules?
Actually, I think each of the 7 GSAs will need to approve.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm-
yes,
That's what I'm referring to, yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. If there's no other comments from my colleagues, I'll open it up to the public. Oh, Supervisor. Okay. Anybody in the public have a comment on a consent calendar item? Anybody online? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring the item back for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to clarify, that's with item AA pulled, your motion?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress,
Yes,
motion approved 5-0.
very good. Thank you very much. We will move on to discussion items, and the first one is item 6A.
Presentation of the 2023 Madera County Crop and Livestock Report by the Agricultural Commissioner.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. It's my pleasure to present the 2023 Crop and Livestock Report. So as we began 2023, if we remember back, the state experienced 31 atmospheric storms and 1 tropical storm, Hillary, which affected some of our ag crops. We had flooding. Statewide, the precipitation was 141% of normal. The Sierra Nevada snowpack peaked at 237% of normal. Heavy rains in January and March with the cool weather affected pollinations, and there was localized flooding. So as we move into this, for 2023, the gross value was $1,859,365,000, which was a decrease of $161,318,000 from the adjusted 2022 gross value. And these are just gross production values. These do not represent profit or loss to our growers or our individual growers. So as we move into this, the leading crops in Madera County, as you can see from the chart, the top 7 have remained the same from 2022. 8, 9, and 10 have moved around. Previously it was corn and alfalfa, and replacement heifers, processed tomatoes, and figs moved back into the top 10. This graph here just represents the commodity groups that are in the crop report and kind of where the losses or percent losses were into where the gains were. So you can kind of see across the board, apiary, field crops, fruit and nut crops were all, and also livestock and poultry were all negative, where the other ones were on the higher side. As you can see, vegetable crops had a 69% increase. I believe it was, 63.9%. And a lot of that was just to processing tomatoes and contract tomatoes that year. So there was a huge market for tomatoes that year. So as we move through this, I kind of want to throw this in here this year. This shows basically our harvested acres. So we get these numbers, number one, from our crop report. the numbers can be skewed a little bit depending on when the growers report to us when the field actually comes into production. So they may have planted it and not told us, and it may be a couple years down the road before it comes into production, especially with permanent crops. And the two different charts show with rangeland and without rangeland. We do that just because the rangeland number varies year to year depending on where we get the number from. Sometimes we get that from the Department of Conservation. Sometimes we get that through USDA. So that just varies year to year. But if you look at the bottom line there, you can see that back in 2003, there was about 33,000 or 300,700 acres in production, and as of or harvested acres, and as now in 2023, we're at 340,930 acres that are harvested. So if we move through this just a little bit, planted acres, we're looking at annual versus permanent crops. And I thought this was interesting. I thought I would include this as we look at the bottom line, our annual crops. Those ones have decreased over the last 20 years, and where our permanent crop plantings have increased. Actually peaked back in about 2020 and has actually dropped down just a little bit. A little hard to see, but this is just basically the crop or the summary of all of the different parts of the crop report, showing harvested acres and then the total value within each crop category. So we have some copies here today of the crop report, and this will also be uploaded on our website and will be available this afternoon if anybody has or likes to get a copy. And I'm willing to take any questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Yeah, great report, Rusty. This sure gives us an eye shot at what's going on. You prefaced your report with the weather and what have you, and you attribute the loss largely to weather and pollination and et cetera.
Some of the losses were due to that. We did some initial surveys when that was happening, when we had the freeze, we had the cold weather, we had the rain. We didn't hit a threshold for a disaster declaration or anything like along that. But also, that's some of the part of it. The other part of it with commodity prices as well drove some of that down. Mainly in the previous year, milk prices and some of that drove us back up, or at least kept us somewhere. And then this year it dropped back down again. So it's just a fluctuation in markets.
Right. And as I drive around the district, which is my district's primarily farming areas, I see a lot of trees pulled, empty land, undeveloped, unfarmed, and it seems to be staying that way. When will we see that reflected in probably this next year?
Yes, probably in the next year. And some of that is typically in January, we send out a survey to our growers for the previous crop year. And so we'll start capturing that data, and they may have data for 24. And so, it's usually a year behind when we'll actually capture that and when they report it to us, because they may not even tell us when they come in and permit that they took a field out.
Right.
We'll just notice that there are no reports coming in on that specific field. And so until we capture that data, but I think over the next couple of years, we're going to catch a lot of the fields that are being pulled out, especially the permanent crops that are coming out. And then it'd be interesting to see what we're going back with.
I might also add, and you can elaborate on this if you wish, but it's due to Sigma. I mean, they're pulling trees as a result of the water issue and Sigma.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of uncertainty with water and what the future holds and how we can retain water and use water and pump water and store water. And I think that's directing a lot of decisions, in my opinion, directing a lot of decisions of what growers and producers are doing with their ground.
I would concur with that, with what I hear on the ground. I think it's really important to hear that from you, collaborating in that information. That's really key. Gives us an idea of what we can expect in the future. And I think it's super important that you continue to communicate maybe with the assessor's office too in that regard. I think working together with Brett Frazier is going to really help us get a handle on what the role is going to look like, and what we're going to have and not have. And so I really appreciate this report. It's outstanding. Difficult times to get information, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good. Rusty, you showed a couple of slides
Mhm.
that I don't see in the packet. They were for the acres, and if we could get our hands on those, that'd be great.
I will send those today when I get back to the office. Yeah, I kind of tweaked it at the last minute, so I didn't include it with the packet. We were trying to add a couple slides, so
Okay,
I'll get those to you.
yeah, I think that's really valuable information because it shows those trends that I think are so important. So thank you.
One last question. Are you hearing of any concept of crop shift or shift?
I'm not hearing of it, but I mean, just being out and looking around at what's happening, and which, as you pointed out, what crops are being removed to some of the permanent crops. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the growers, what decisions, their management decisions they're making and coming back with.
Right.
Depending on water, depending on the price of commodities, and maybe coming back in with annual crops and not perennial crops.
With the land that has been deforested or whatever you want to call it, the crop removed, do you anticipate some dry land farming there?
I think it's up to the growers of what's the best management choice for them. And, when you look back at the history of the Central Valley, and it was a dry land farming area until the irrigation and these practices came into place. So I think if there is an opportunity for a producer to generate some revenue from a piece of ground and anticipating Mother Nature to provide some moisture so they can get a harvestable crop. I think those are all decisions that are going to be made in the future.
Yeah, and I think one thing that'll determine that too, some of it may stay fallow as a result of being in a farm unit where they can shift that concentration to the other part of their farm and actually produce a viable crop because they're going to need that water to do so. So I think it depends on what the farm unit is producing on the whole and how they're going to manage to do that.
Yes.
The management of that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Great information. I think it's good for the public to hear that too.
One more thing, I'd like to thank Cha Vang, who's here with me today. He's the one that puts this report together and gathers all the data and makes me look good up here. So
Thank you.
thank you, Cha.
Good job.
Great job keeping it confidential too. So if there's no other comments from my colleagues, are there any members of the public that have a comment on this report? Anybody online?
I'm sorry, Rusty Landsberger.
Very good. So this was a presentation and so no action necessary. Let's go on to item 6B. Thank you, Rusty.
Discussion and consideration of entering into an amendment to MCC number 11845-21 with Madera County Superintendent of Schools increasing compensation by $1,508,975 for increasing access to mental health services and extending the term to December 31st, 2025, and authorize the chairman to sign.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Aaron Garcia, Fiscal Manager, Behavioral Health Services. We have for your consideration is an amendment to an existing contract with Madera County Superintendent of Schools to provide access to services on school campuses across Madera County, addressing suicide prevention, dropout prevention, placement assistance, plans for students in need of ongoing mental health services to prevent mental health illnesses from becoming severe and disabling, and also outreach to high-risk youth. This amendment is needed due to the school closures during the COVID-19 pandemic that caused delays in the implementation of services. On March 7, 2023, we amended our contract with the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission, adding these additional 2 years to that agreement, which will ultimately fund this agreement. I'm also here with Andrea Martinez, our Deputy Director of Behavioral Health Services, and Art Galindo, Interim Assistant Director, to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this item? Yes, Supervisor.
Not a question, but just a clarification for, the taxpayers of this county. This is being funded from subvented funds and not from the general fund. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Mental Health Student Services Act of 2019 will be funding.
Great, thank you.
And I also wanted to point out on the recommended action, it does have a date of December 31st, 2025. I'd like to make a correction to that, which should be December 31st, 2026, which would be the 2 years.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Any members of the public have a comment regarding this item? Anybody online? Nope.
Mr.
Very
Chair,
good.
I'll move
Yes.
to approve with the amendment.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras,
Yes.
motion approved 5-0.
Very good. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7A because it's 10:31 roughly and time for public hearings.
Hearing to consider a letter of public convenience and necessity to obtain a type 20 off-sale beer and wine license to allow the sale of beer and wine at a convenience store. The property is owned by Ahmad Nadeem and is located on the south side of Avenue 14 at its intersection with Road 2410 Avenue 14, Madera. The parcel APN 045-141-001 is zoned CRM Commercial Rural Median and Residential Rural Single Family District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jamie Bax with Community and Economic Development. The applicant's representative has actually requested a continuance of this item to October 15th at 10:30. And with your approval, we can renotice this item and allow for the neighbors to receive that notification prior to October 15th.
Very good. Are any questions regarding this request? Any members of the public? So do we, council, we have the motion to continue? Is that
Right, but it sounds like Ms. Bax might be saying are you requesting that they continue this item to a date and time certain? Or just remove it from the agenda and bring it back with new noticing?
Re-agendize this item with new noticing to October 15th.
So the request is just that the item is pulled. There's no need to.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, 7B.
Hearing to consider adoption of a resolution to permit establishment of agricultural preserves of less than 100 acres.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Jamie Bax, Community and Economic Development. I'm going to go through a very brief PowerPoint presentation on these particular parcels. I do have Jacob Aragon with me here, and thank you to Brian Glover from the Assessor's Office who helps us with the Ag Preserve Committee. So just briefly, these are the parcels that are less than 100 acres that we are seeking your approval on to move forward with the application process. So per the rules and procedures of Madera County and per state law, anything less than 100 acres must be approved by the Board of Supervisors prior to going into final contract. So just an overview of where we are. The next two slides, you're going to see some properties that are actually northeast of the city, quite northeast of the city. You have a lot of properties that surround these properties that are already under contract. This is in the area of Avenue 20.5 and Road 29. It is planted in pistachios. The properties to the west, northwest, southwest, and southeast are all under contract. It is a 38.35 acre parcel. It meets the zoning requirements for the Williamson Act as well. The next property is the same ownership and is a little bit further west of the previous site, Avenue 20.5 and Road 27.5. This one is 40.15 acres also of pistachios, and the properties to the west and south are already under contract. This will have to be rezoned as part of the application process. And then the last is Ag Preserve 1759. It's actually south of Chowchilla Avenue 21.5 and Road 15.5. It's 58.12 acres total of the two parcels combined of almonds. And they would also have to rezone their property. There are other properties on the list that will have to rezone their properties. We'll bring those before you
first to the Planning Commission and then to the board in November and December of this year. But these are the ones that were less than 100 acres that we're seeking your approval on, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Jamie regarding this item? Seeing and hearing none, are there any members of the public? This is a public hearing. Any members of the public have a comment regarding this item?
I just have a couple of questions. Anytime somebody wants to change something, I'm always a little leery about what the motivation is behind it. So my question is who's driving it or what's driving this? And what's the advantage or disadvantage to the county for doing this? And what's the impact on the county for doing this?
Very good. Can you reach out to the constituent who made the request? Because it's pretty loaded and it sounds like it requires a lot of information.
Yes,
So-
Mr. Chairman, absolutely.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none, we will, yes.
You need to come forward if you're gonna make
Yeah.
a comment.
Mhm. If you could sign in to there's a sign-in sheet over there too. And right in back of you.
You can do it after you want. Yeah, do it after.
Okay,
Then
can
speak
you
into the mic.
just need to press the button,
Press this button?
yeah,
Okay, it was on.
there you go.
I'm the constituent that requested the change on the first two parcels, not the third one. And if I could respond, I'm a farmer, and those parcels are not in the Williamson Ag Preserve Act. They are ag parcels, pistachios, and I'm here today to try and request that they be approved to enter the Williamson Act for the possibility of reduced property taxes to sustain the viability of the farm financially. Let me share that.
Okay, very good, thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring the item back for action.
I move to approve this action.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6C.
Discussion and consideration of approval of a new fleet service rates for all county departments effective August 1st, 2024.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Anthony Loza, County Administration, General Services. I have Mike Motz with me, acting as Fleet Service Manager today. So the item we have before your board today is consideration of approval of new fleet service rates to become effective October 1st. So that would be today if they're approved. So following the 23-24 fiscal year expenditure review, as well as analysis of the fleet fund balance and the fleet cash balance, staff has determined that the fleet fund is demonstrating a positive recovery. So the new rates will provide a 15-cent reduction across the board for all vehicle types within the county. And the reduction can be attributed primarily to stable fuel prices. So this last year, fuel stayed below $5 a gallon, which was kind of a first for us in the last few years, as well as Mike's conservative spending. So with that said, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from one of my colleagues? Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what this looks like as far as savings for our departments. Is that something that we have calculated or?
Yeah, so the savings is calculated at about 300,000 overall for the year. So 1/3 of that would be the savings for county departments and 2/3 would be for the sheriff's department or sheriff's office.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's all things being equal, and that's assuming we have the same mileage this year as we did last year.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions?
I just want to thank them for bringing this to us and making those efforts to save money. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, some good fiscal news. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any members of the public who have a comment regarding this item? Seeing and hearing none,
Move to approve.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Item 6D.
Discussion and consideration of approval of a proposed voluntary furlough leave pilot program for unrepresented employees of the county.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Joel Begay, County Administrative Office. With the adoption of 24-25 budget, which adopted a $6.7 million deficit for the fiscal year, during the budget presentations, our office has committed to looking at cost-saving measures over the year to bring it back to your board. This is the first of what would be several cost-saving measures. The voluntary furlough leave program is proposed to be a pilot program that's only applicable to unrepresented employees. And the overall thought process here is that we wanted to see if a furlough program, period, would result in a positive savings for the county before we consider any other proposals that's related to furlough. I'm going to go over the program overview a little bit. It's proposed to be implemented effective October 21st through June 20th, 2025, which is the last pay period ending for fiscal year 24-25. I mentioned that unrepresented employees will be eligible to participate in the program and are able to elect between 8 to 80 hours of unpaid voluntary furlough leave for this fiscal year. Department heads will have full discretion to approve or deny applications for VFL based on operation and fiscal needs, and there's more intricacies later that we'll cover. Specifically, if it's not going to result in savings, we would want the department head to deny it. If it's going to be resulting in backfill of overtime, we would want the department head to have that discretion not to approve it. Or if it's going to impact delivery of programs significantly, then we want the department head to have the flexibility to at least approve or deny applications for VFL. Employees will use the VFL must be in accordance with their pre-approved furlough schedule, which would be submitted as part of the application, or unless otherwise authorized or modified by the department head. Department head shall have the right to modify the furlough schedule as mentioned based on operational needs or to prevent overtime or other general fund costs to be incurred. Any furlough hours elected must be utilized by the pay period ending June 20, 2025. Employees will have the ability to request a one-time hardship exemption on modifying or eliminating any of the voluntary furlough hours that they originally elected. So this is kind of like consistent to the one-time pass you elected 80, something happened. We're going to give a one-time, but otherwise for administrative purposes and processing and realizing the savings, we would only allow a one-time modification of it for the fiscal year. FLA, Fair Labor Standards Act exempt employees. These are the employees who do not receive overtime. Will lose their FLA exempt status during the work week or work weeks in which the VFL is used. This is part of the labor rules. And in which case, if somebody who's on furlough for that period has to be called back to work additional hours above what their hours would have been, they would be eligible for overtime at that point. Hence, again, there's a heavy reliance on department heads to be careful on what sections of the department would be a good fit for voluntary furlough. As mentioned, each voluntary furlough application will be accompanied by a proposed schedule, and the elected will be approved by the department head, and the number of furlough hours elected will be available to employees via a special unpaid work hour code that will be set up in NEAGOV. If approved, if your board approves the proposed pilot program, applications will be available to be submitted no later than October 14th to be in time to be set up in NEAGOV for October 21st. That ends our presentation. Staff from admin and HR are available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Joel? Yes.
Yeah, Joel, I know this is a pilot program and we don't really have a basis for comparison on this, but have we done any research into potential participation in this program and what that equates to as a net county savings?
I think that's a good question, Supervisor. I think when we started down that path, what we realized is we don't have a historical basis that's reliable. I think the last time the county did a furlough, it was not executed well, so there's no good data from it. I think we ended up having to, I think, settle with some units on that furlough. So
we went to PERB.
And the reason we wanted to set this up as a pilot is to gather good data, to start the conversations. The take-up rate is the important part of it. It's like, it's one thing to say a department can designate an operation that can be can accommodate a furlough. It's another if people are actually going to want to opt in on it on a voluntary basis. So we do not have a projection at that time, but what we're hoping to do is based on the data on who signs up, where they sign up, is we'll have better projections come January as far as what a furlough would be if it was opened, countywide. I will say though, the majority of unrepresented employees are in general fund operations. So although we anticipate some savings, it's not going to be huge savings, but at this point, I think, we're prepared to take any savings that we can generate out of this program.
About right, I think. And feeding off the supervisor's question, have we had any feedback from our department heads in regards to the program? I mean, I think that's kind of going to be helpful as we fine tune. And with that said, I do appreciate, the approach here in working through this slowly. So.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to open it up for any department head that wants. I think in the conversations that we've had, we haven't gotten any negative feedback. I think the main feedback that we got from department heads is that the department had discretion on approving and denying, and that has been baked into the process. It's heavily weighted for department heads to determine which applications can be approved or denied based on operational needs. In fact, in the proposed form, I think the workflow would be first line soup, department head approval, and the department head can determine internally if which mid-manager within that department needs to be involved in that, but the final signatory is the department head, then it goes to admin and HR. And even then at that process, it gives us an opportunity to question and saying, hey, are you really sure? Because there might be things that they didn't look at, right? So that's going to be the approval process for proposed pilot program.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Just how do you intend to roll this out to the employees when you have a deadline of October 14th that they have to decide if they're going to participate? Is that ample time, or how hard set are you on the October 14th date?
I don't know if we can answer the hard set. I think we're planning to do a wait and see on that. If the problem, the October 21st was the earliest that we can put this together after we put together what we thought would be the mechanics of what a pilot program could be. That said, if we don't get any takers, we probably would go back to your board and update and saying, okay, we're going to extend applications. I think we're going to try to see what we get on October 14th. We're gonna blast this out to every department. We're gonna talk to every department head, give them the specifics on it, and just see what the take-up rate. The fortunate part is we're dealing with a subset of employees, right? There's some departments have more unreps than others, but it's easier to. I think in total there's about 70 unrepresented. It would be easy to reach out, I guess, individually to the 70 because it's not the full county.
Okay.
And the lessons learned in that we're taking notes in the eventuality that your board, considers, or depending on the county's fiscal situation a year from now, considers a more countywide program. So we want to gather the data from this, and we're going to learn lessons. Because once we start coding to NEOGov, I'm sure there are things that we have not accounted for, and we want to learn that in this pilot program.
One other thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is more of an HR directed question, but are there any issues regarding MOUs or collective bargaining agreements that we have related to this? And have we worked or spoken to these units to get their feedback?
We have not spoken to the units to get feedback, but this is, good morning, Shanika Dixon, Director of Human Resource. Sorry about that. They would not be impacted because this is for unrepresented at this time. But as we move through this process and figure out, what the impacts will look like in general, then we'll be able to have that information available if we decide to move forward with a different program countywide moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. If there's no other questions from my colleagues, I'll take it out to the public. Any public comment? Anybody online? Seeing and hearing none, I'll bring the item back for action.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Very good. Thank you very much. Supervisor Rogers.
Yes, at this point, we'd like to open and close this meeting and dedicate it to the memory of the Honorable Edward Chidlaw, who was a state judge in Atascadero. He was admitted to the bar in 1955 and served as a private attorney, then city attorney of the city of Chowchilla. He was very well known in Chowchilla for his contributions to the Jackass Rock Campground and as a Little League coach. Ed also served in the Madera County DA's office. It is fitting today to memorialize his tremendous service in the records of Madera County. And our thoughts and our prayers are with his family today, Cindy and John Diaz and all of their family and the Biggers family. So thank you for opening and closing in his memory.
Very good. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6E.
Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution reappointing Rusty Landsberger as the county's agricultural commissioner, sealer of weights and measures to another 4-year term effective October 16, 2024.
Morning, Chairman and members of the board. Jay Varney, County CAO. We have before you a new 4-year resolution requesting the appointment of Rusty Landsberger as our Ag Commissioner, sealer of weights and measures, and we're available to answer questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions from my colleagues? Seeing and hearing none, are there any members of the public have a comment regarding this action?
I would just like to say that Rusty's been a pleasure to work with these 4 years, and I'd look forward to another 4. I don't know that I'll be here for another 4, but Rusty will.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Second, yeah, go ahead.
We're getting some information. No. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thanks for your service, Rusty.
Right. Very good. Let's move on to item 6F.
Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution amending resolution number 2024-080 related to the appointment of Michelle May as a retired annuitant to the position of interim director of human resources.
Yes, good morning, Chairman and members of the board. Sabrina Mendez, Department of Human Resources. The item before you is a request to actually correct the salary of retired annuitant Michelle May. On July 16th, 2024, your board adopted a resolution appointing Ms. May to the position of interim director of human resources at step B, of range 32. And the step is actually less than her hourly rate when she was appointed to the lower level position of interim assistant director. It was not our intent to decrease her pay, and we would like to request that should be placed at step C. This is for your review and consideration, and I'm available for any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any comments, questions from my colleagues? Seeing and hearing none, are there any members of the public that have a comment regarding this item? Anybody online? I'll bring the item back for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-0, one absent.
Thank you. Items 6G.
Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing on November 12th, 2024 at 10:30 a.m. to consider the formation of Madera County Underground Utility District Number 17 for inclusion into underground conversion program along the north side of Avenue 9 in Lavina.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Jared with Public Works. The item before you today is a resolution to set a public hearing for November 12th at 10:30 regarding the formation of an underground utility district in the Lavina area. This particular location is a stretch of Avenue 9 between Road 24 and Road 23.5 in Lavina, where we are undertaking a sidewalk or mobility improvement project that you're probably familiar with. We were granted a active transportation funding to complete that project. So as part of that process, we evaluated utility conflicts in the area and identified that on the north side of Avenue 9, there are approximately 14 power poles that are in place that would conflict with the sidewalk facilities. So the Rule 20A program through PG&E provides credits to local agencies for undergrounding utilities in areas related to neighborhoods and projects. And so the team at Public Works reached out to PG&E to discuss the possibility of utilizing some of those credits to underground these facilities and have been engaged with them in that process. As part of that process, we have to form an underground district for the parcels that would be taking service from those new lines that are going to be undergrounded. So as you see in the report, there's approximately 24 parcels on the north side of Avenue 9 that would be part of this district and receive those underground utilities. I'm available for any questions if you have them.
Very good. Are there any questions regarding this item?
Just a quick question in regards to the credits, and I was hoping you might just elaborate on our eligibility as a county to access those credits and how many credits are out there. It's not something I'm overly familiar with, so.
Sure. So I can't necessarily speak directly to exactly how they're allocated. They come through PG&E through a process, a tariff process that they have in place. I will say that the program has ended as of 2023. And right now, anything hasn't been used, expended or allocated to a project by 2033 will be lost essentially. So the program is over. The last check I have, the county had about a little over $4 million in credits. This project is estimated to be a little over 2 million for the undergrounding of these utilities on that project. And again, we'll be looking to use the rest of those credits and use those up. But I do know that there are other counties who have already lost their credits because they did not have anything allocated or anything in the works to utilize those credits. So we're trying to use them up and take advantage of them. But it is expensive. I mean, everything's expensive with PG&E these days,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, utilizing these funds in this particular location will create a big benefit for this community and, just really enhance the facilities that are going to be constructed out there. We did have a public meeting out there with the community and kind of explain some of this stuff and we give them an update on the project. So, we've used these credits, I know in the past, they've been used on Road Martin Street, where the schools are, Matilda and those schools there. There was some underground that was done for that segment and in other locations as well.
Very good. Yes, Supervisor.
Yeah, undergrounding is very expensive and it looks like we're doing something with the sidewalks too, having to remove some of the sidewalks as well. So, we have sidewalks, curbs, gutters, streetlights, undergrounding utilities. Looks like we're putting a lot of focus on Lavina. Is that correct?
Yeah, Supervisor. So with the undergrounding of the utilities and then the completion of the mobility project, it represents about $5.5 million that will be invested in that community.
Yeah, a lot of these services, other unincorporated communities within this county would die to have all of this type of attention. So I just want to recognize that we have put a tremendous focus on Lavina and some other unincorporated communities within this county, not to mention broadband as well.
Are there any other comments from my colleagues? If not, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public that have a comment? Nobody from Lavina? Okay. We will close the comment time and
The
bring it back.
representative of Lavina will make a motion, but I would like to thank staff for moving forward with this. And I appreciate the comment, Jordan, my colleague. I agree. A lot of attention has been put, and I'd like for them to remember that. I'd like for them to think about that because their pavement condition index is 90%. It's higher than anywhere else in the county. We're taking care of those individuals out there. So I appreciate the comments very much, and I move to approve.
And you wouldn't know that their PCI is 90. It seems like, everything, all the infrastructure is crumbling there, and it's not. It's actually one of the nicest infrastructure areas that we have in this county.
Right. I agree.
Is that a second?
And it's a second. Thank you to the staff.
Okay,
I'll step
very
off the
good.
soapbox.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhoff?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Boythris?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Very good. Thank you very much. Great job. 6H.
Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution establishing a 30-day public review period of Measure T annual expenditure plans prior to consideration for adoption by the County Board of Supervisors.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Jared Carter of Public Works again. This item is a consideration of a resolution to establish a 30-day public review period that would be in place for Measure T annual expenditure plan adoptions. As you're probably aware, there is a citizen initiative that was presented on the ballot for the renewal of Measure T. Unfortunately, that did not include the 30-day review period that was originally contemplated by the board and also MCTA. And so this action is to reaffirm or reestablish, if you will, that 30-day review period and commit to that moving forward with Measure T project lists before they're brought to the board for consideration. I do, Troy McNeil with the Transportation Authority is here, as well as Kendall Flint with DKS, who was involved with development of the expenditure plan, and they can comment on any specifics related to plan.
Very good. Are there any questions, comments from my colleagues? Okay. So Kendall wishes to make a comment. So we'll go ahead, Kendall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to defer to my colleague, Troy McNeil first to let him make his comments, and then I will follow up with some clarification just to make sure that everybody has the accurate information. So if it's with the permission of the board, I defer to Troy to start.
Very good. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Troy McNeil, Deputy Director, Fiscal Supervisor for the Madera County Transportation Commission. I just want to commend the board for taking up this item. It goes above and beyond the current law of 15 days, so a 30-day public review period is a good thing. Just to clarify some of the comments received, I understand the board received a written comment that is very similar to a written comment that we received. I just want to reiterate the statement that was in the staff report that the citizen measure and the expenditure plan from the steering committee, the plan language is essentially the same except for this one item. And so I'm glad that the board has taken this up. The plan then gets developed into an ordinance. As we know, an ordinance is basically legal language from attorneys to make sure that all the legal stuff is taken care of, and it refers to the expenditure plan. And then all that gets turned into the election office, which gets turned into ballot language. And so sometimes we can get caught up in the semantics of things and get distracted of what's really what we're talking about here, which is a 30-day public review period for these projects. And the Commission Authority is fully supportive of these efforts. Thank you.
And with, with Troy's permission and the board, can I finish that thought?
You can, and then I have a question.
Okay, so a couple things. One, just for edification, both the Measure T ordinance that was created by the steering committee, which as a point of fact was created by the steering committee, there was staff presentations, but no input. There was no elected officials appointing members of the steering committee, and was unanimously passed. I'd also like to point out that one of the things that was pointed out in at least our letter was a question that the steering committee was unable to review the ordinance. That's patently false. It was provided to everyone in the public, as well as the steering committee, through links to the Board of Supervisors and the Madera County Transportation Authority prior to the adoption of those plans. Just to, again, reiterate what Troy was just saying, the actual ballot language, the ordinance part of it, is a legal document and is not something that either the steering committee, unless they're all attorneys, would be able to do. Also, for clarification on the signed thing for the steering committee, what they were specifically advised of is that, and I'm reading this from the document that they all agreed to, the committee, the steering committee will develop the content of a potential expenditure plan, determine the length of the measure's lifespan, and establish parameters for oversight by a citizen committee. The committee will receive briefings from the cities of Chowchilla and Madera and the county of Madera, describing each area's needs for its consideration. The final plan will be the result of negotiation and consensus among committee members. Further down in the document, we advised everyone that the committee would not be engaged in any discussions or policies regarding the makeup of the Madera County Transportation Commission or the Madera County Transportation Authority, as those are controlled by state law. Interestingly enough, we posted the FAQ that was provided to Sarah's citizens and others on the measuret-2024.com website. You can also find there both versions of the citizens ordinance as well as the steering committee's ordinance. And just one last thing, fun fact, actually the state of California adopted a citizen policy to put things on the ballot back in 1911. It's part of Article 2. And if you'd like to learn more about Madera's process for citizen driven initiatives, it's part of the election code in section 9101. And I've also posted that on the website so people can get clarifications. Again, we just want to make sure people have factual information with regard to this process. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yeah, my question is in regard to the 30-day public review period. I know that the jurisdictions obviously have to approve the annual expenditures because it's all part of, what types of repairs and projects, et cetera, that occur in the various jurisdictions. But also it's the MCTA who would also be approving this. Now, the 30-day public review period, would it be part of the MCTA process or is it part of the jurisdiction process?
So each jurisdiction would have to undergo a 30-day public review period at each of their board and council level at the two cities to review their projects and to get public input into those projects before they approve that list. And then it would go to the authority board would also have an additional review period for additional comments.
So lots of opportunity for review.
Correct.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Are there any comments, questions from my colleagues? If not, I will open it up to the public for any comment. Are there any members of the public, anybody online? Did we receive any comments to the board from online? I think, did we receive it? You want to?
Yes, Kendall is also wanting to address the board.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and mention that and then just say that we received it.
We received a letter this morning from Dan Metz in regards to this item.
Okay, for public comment. Okay, Kendall.
Yeah, I just want to make sure for the clarification that the board understands, and I do appreciate, as Troy mentioned, you guys taking this up. City of Madera will be doing this tomorrow, and the City of Chowchilla will be doing on October 8th. But I think the most important thing is that it was very important to the steering committee that there was a more transparent process. And while each jurisdiction has annual work plans, the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan, and others, the idea here was to specifically call out funds that were going to be allocated from Measure T so that there was a very clear look from the public to be able to say, hey, this is where the money's going to go the next year, so it's more transparent. And I think that language was extremely important. And I know from the folks that we've heard from, they were all very happy to hear that the board and others were going to be taking this up, because it just is another step in the right direction, which is ensuring we have enhanced transparency and full disclosure for all the funds that may be used by Measure T. So thank you for that.
Are there any other comments?
Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the public comment you put on the record, there is a claim that the recitals in the resolution is incorrect. And I just want to make sure that the comments addressed it satisfactorily to the board before there is a motion. The claim in the public comment is that the citizen initiative measure and the expenditure plan is the same that was developed by the Measure T steering committee. There's an allegation that that wasn't created by the steering committee, at least the measure and the expenditure plan. I think that I was trying to listen carefully. I think that the comment was that that was indeed, of course, the Board of Supervisors doesn't direct the steering committee. That's a Madera County Transportation Authority committee. And so I just wanted to take a pause and make sure that there's no need to amend that language. It's in the recitals, not the resolution part. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I can address that, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
Sure.
If you compare the two plans, the only difference is this 30-day public review period. And so everything else is exactly the same.
And Mr. Chairman, I have a question or a clarification. And it has to do with the timing of this, because if I understand correctly, this was filed as a citizens initiative prior to the MCTA board approving the 30-day window.
Correct.
That's the only difference in the language.
Correct.
From what the steering committee created.
In the expenditure plan, that is correct.
Okay, very good. And with that, I'll accept the motion for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Jordan Wamhoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhoff, I'm sorry, Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Responded to much worse.
6I.
Discussion and consideration of entering into an agreement with AspireNet in an amount not to exceed $1,145,030 for the provision of wraparound services for foster youth for a term ending October 31st, 2025, and authorize the chairman to sign.
Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Deborah Martinez, Director of Social Services. I'm here about an item with AspireNet in order to provide wraparound services for our foster care youth. This is a required state welfare institution code service that needs to be part of our curriculum or our coordination of care. And so AspireNet is the only respondent, and it is also an expert provider of wraparound services, providing services in Kern, Tulare, Merced, and other Central Valley counties, and will also be starting in Fresno as of next month. If you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions for Deborah right now regarding this item? Yes.
I just have another point of clarification that, this is coming from subvented funds and not from general fund, just for the public's knowledge.
Absolutely. There is no impact on the general fund. This is primarily by realignment, MHSA, and Medi-Cal.
Thank you for that.
Are there any members of the public who have a question or comment regarding this item? Anybody online? We'll bring the item back for action.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second.
Supervisor Gonzalez, I
And
think, had the
McCauley.
motion.
Mhm.
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers.
Yes.
Supervisor Wumhoff,
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I want to thank you, and I also want to thank Art from Behavioral Health, great partner, and my staff analyst, Adrienne Jane, who did a great job. Excuse me,
Excellent.
Rayanne. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great job, everybody. 6J.
Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution approving a plan for the multi-benefit agricultural land repurposing program in Madera County GSA.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephanie and Agneson here, your Director of Water and Natural Resources. Our presentation. And I'm here with the partners that we've worked on this plan. We're going to share the presentation, which is a little bit of a round robin, but we will try to do it very efficiently. Today, our outline includes reviewing the background of this grant and plan, the eligibility requirements, project types, the process for getting a grant or a payment through an RFP and project, what the payment itself looks like, outreach, including a project in Lavina, and then the staff recommendation. The plan itself is available online at maderacountywater.com on the multi-benefit land repurposing page, accessed through the QR code here as well. You'll find the full document as well as a shorter overview. I will note there was a minor mistake on page 33 of the plan. I have a complete version up there, which includes a corrected page 33. Also, some copies of page 33 are extra up there. We also did an e-blast to 800 people in case they were interested in reading the correct version. Let me tell you a little bit about this grant. So this is from the State Department of Conservation. It is a block grant. You can see that we are one of the TAN agencies there on the grant, the County of Madera, Cahuilla Delta, Pixley Irrigation, and then the California Marine Sanctuary were in round 1. And then there is a round 2 that received the grant. There are a couple of acronyms, Multi-Benefit Land Repurposing Program, or MLRP, that's the program itself. And then the plan has maybe a funnier name, Multi-Benefit Agricultural Land Repurposing, or MLARP, which does not really run off the tongue, so we don't say it like that unless we think it's funny. All right, I'm going to shift to Noah Lopez, who's going to review eligibility.
Good morning, Noah Lopez with the Madera Ag Water Association. So this slide discusses the eligibility for projects within the MLRP. First and foremost, the project has to be, or the applicant has to be an owner or the owner's designee of land that's within the within a GSA within Madera County. So there's multiple GSAs within the county. Second, the applicant has to comply with MLRP rules and with the GSP for that area. And it should be noted this includes paying any applicable taxes and fees. So the GSA fee, GSP fee, and that's for the duration of the contract. The duration of the contract is at least 10 years, and it has to include one eligible project type, which will be discussed in the next slide, as well as ensure that one or more of the co-benefits identified in the plan is being met.
And I'm Charlotte Mitchell, California Farmland Trust, and reviewing the project types. Department of Conservation did provide the 3 buckets, if you will, or project types in this scenario: agricultural, habitat, and other benefits. That is to keep us all organized and keep our projects, solidified in the direction that we're going. Agricultural is dryland farming, less water-intensive cropping, rotational strip cropping, and rangeland. habitat could be pollinator habitat types, et cetera. And other uses of that agricultural land could be solar recharge, community recreation, or tribal and cultural spaces.
I'm Katie Carlson with Zanhero. The MALRP document includes the full RFP and the project selection process that we will be undertaking as part of this program here in Madera County. We have the RFP slated to be released this Friday, October 4th, and we have a 7-week period where there'll be a pre-application window for interested parties to submit a pre-application interest form for to be able to assess their eligibility that Noah went over earlier. And then we'll be doing a 4+ month project proposal development period with those interested parties who meet those eligibility requirements. This will include ample technical assistance and lots of guidance to help navigate the DOC requirements as part of this program. I'll mention that we went through a pretty deep public outreach process, and part of that was the input that we received was to extend that period. So this represents an extension on that project proposal development period, which will close at the end of February, after which we'll go through a scoring and selection process in order to deliver a portfolio of projects to DOC, which they will then review and approve as part of the grant management.
This would be a Duncan McEwen with ERA Economics. So this would be a voluntary program. It's a voluntary state grant funded program. So to encourage participation, there would be incentive payments. These incentive payment structure that I'm going to describe was set in coordination with the project partners that you're hearing from today, as well as through a public workshop and outreach process that's been going on over the last many months. So there's 3 types of payments that would be eligible under this program. One is direct project costs. These are pretty easy to understand. So this is everything from legal and application time and time to review and put together a project plan, permitting potentially, and then direct project costs for installation, as well as ongoing operations and maintenance of the project over the 10-year duration. The second category is what we're calling foregone returns. So for some lands, depending on what the alternative land use is, there would be foregone income from activities, primarily agricultural activities that could continue to occur on that land. And so this is an eligible component of payment for the program. Now, any foregone returns would be adjusted for the alternative land use and the alternative water use on that land as well, so that those are fair and consistent across the program. And then the third component is the MLRP benefits. So as you heard, there's other co-benefits that the program is trying to encourage. These we could think of as broader public benefits that aren't providing a private return to the individual landowner or participant. And there's an additional payment for the provision of those co-benefits provided by each individual project. The payments are not prescribed. They would be, except for the MLRP benefits, they would be part of the application process for the applicant. So this recognizes that there's going to be a bunch of different types of projects and project scales, and the incentive payments need to encourage voluntary participation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Reina Rodriguez. She's on Zoom. She had a flat tire on the way here, unfortunately. Are we able to unmute her? She has raised her hand. Sounds like you need to unmute yourself, Reina.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Reina Rodriguez with Linguistica. And this has been such a great process. I really have appreciated all of the different ways that we're going out and meeting with community and going to them. We have conducted survey outreach. We've also done in-person activities, setting up booths like at the swap meet or the farmers market in Madera. We have also conducted both online and in-person meetings, of which have all been language accessible. And we continue to work with a lot of our local partners that maybe otherwise would be harder to reach due to the language barrier. So we have reached out to agencies such as CBDIO, and we have reached out to Pequeños Empresarios, which are community-based organizations that really wanted to also get involved. And once they heard about MLRP and the process, they have been very open to continuing the relationship and participation in events. But we have had a few workshops. We've tried to accommodate both morning and afternoon meetings just to make sure that it is very accessible for community. Thank you.
Good morning, Christina Beckstead, Executive Director, Madera County Farm Bureau. I echo Reina's sentiments on this whole process. It has been it's been a great process, actually, working together. The partners have all come together and have had some very thoughtful conversations, I think, through this process. But that said, throughout the entire process, all of the partners have come together and developed surveys. We've done a lot of one-on-one engagement with growers, or landowners, I should say, as well as with the community, obviously, based on what Reina just explained to you. There's been quite a few emails that have gone out. You're probably on multiple email blasts, whether it's from the counties or from farm bureaus or from MAWA. There have been a lot of emails that have gone out in this process. And then we've obviously had the workshops that partners have worked on together in multiple facets. So some of us have done a workshop over here and some of us have done a workshop over there. And we continue to do that and engage in the process. We've had a lot of meaningful conversation with individual landowners, which is actually how we came to the Lavina project. So it was good to see the presentation earlier, the discussion earlier, to hear the discussion earlier on the Lavina efforts that are underway. This plays into that as well. We have a grower that owns some land around the Lavina area that this project worked for her. So I will let Amy speak to that. But as this process continues, we will continue to do outreach with landowners and the community. This is a living document. So we look forward to continuing to modify as we need to as things progress. Thank you. And one more thing. So there's also been some communication, this photo here, the state's paying some attention to this. So this was Senator Padilla came out, one of our opportunities to engage with the community of Lavina. Senator Padilla was very interested in this DOC grant and came out, and we had him here that day, or his representative here with us to learn about the program as well.
Good morning, Amy Silesnoff, Executive Director for the Madera Chowchilla Resource Conservation District. I'll be presenting on the Lavina pilot project. It's an exciting project that the team has been working on. The Madera Chowchilla RCD compiled a conservation plan for the landowner. And the project consists of approximately removing 6 rows of walnuts and 5 rows of almonds, which is 5.27 acres total. And the first hedgerow is approximately 2,000 feet. That includes large shrub species, which will help with dust control and include pollinators. The second hedgerow is 270 feet, which you could see in pink highlighted there. And that's to beautify the street side for the community at the same time as providing diverse pollinator habitat. So we're really excited about this project. 3 co-benefits that will be included is habitat creation, soil quality enhancement, and air quality improvement. So yeah, we're really looking forward to this project, and I will pass it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Amy. As you can see, this was a massive effort and involving a lot of different agencies. So the staff recommendation is to adopt the multi-benefit agricultural land repurposing plan and then approve release of a pre-application starting this week, October 1st. Happy to take your questions.
Very good. Are there any questions Yes.
No question, just a comment. I just wanted to, I do have one question involved in this, but I wanted to say, I think this is really great to give options to the circumstances that exist that are somewhat beyond the producer's control, the agricultural community gives them options they really need. And these are great options for the community as well. In the process of this being implemented, it'd be great to monitor what's going on, get some feedback from both the farm side and the community, just to see how this plays out. And it might be something of a model for future projects, or maybe we'll learn something from it where we can adjust and what have you. I think it's a great plan. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Are there any members of the public who have a comment? Anybody online? Stephanie, looks like you just received a message.
Thank you. If there is a motion to adopt the plan, we would want to make it with the corrected page 33 available over there to the public.
I'll move to approve with the corrected page.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhoff?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6K.
Discussion and consideration to adopt a resolution revising the rules for appeal of the County Groundwater Sustainability Agency's determination of use of groundwater allocation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephanie Agneson, your Director of Water and Natural Resources. I have a short overview on some proposed grower-friendly changes. As you probably recall, the original resolution 2021-113, paragraph 13, describes an appeals process if you are on satellite data or appealing the satellite data to use your own meter data. And what we require in that basic resolution was demonstrating that the flow meter was installed and maintained according to the manufacturer's specifications, providing a calibration report. And in this reso, it required that it was from an engineer within the last 2 years, monthly meter reads or monthly photos that showed your meter. And then the evaluation was conducted by a third party and considered final. So that's the original resolution. We amended it last year to augment the process to include a couple things that were, I think, pretty grower friendly. The first is that the calibration report did not have to be done by an engineer. It could be done in the field by a local vendor, and that it could also be calibrated in a lab with a facility like Technoflow where someone takes the meter off. So there's an in-field option as well as a option if you'd like to take the meter off. It also, in this resolution, allowed for PG&E electric bills or air pollution control district records to be submitted for months when you were not using any electricity or fuel. So these were kind of additional things that allowed growers to fill in some gaps in their own record keeping, particularly in months early in the calendar year where they might not be on the farm as much. We also required maps and cropping, including any documentation of additional water supplies. So that's how the resolution was currently amended. What's proposed is something that I think is pretty grower friendly. It is the use of telemetry as an option. Telemetry is something that can be installed on the meter that is taking a meter read and sending it to your computer or a centralized computer. Could be a portal you're logging onto, and you're getting a lot of data. So the requirement is that the county GSA or the consultant have access to the data with the login. And we have consulted with one of the firms that offers this service, and this doesn't seem to be an issue. We also are adding a requirement that there's the ability to access the land. Typically, growers want to take us out there and show us the wells because they feel very strongly about their data being correct. So this formalizes the process of going out and looking at each of the wells. So the staff recommendation is to adopt the proposed amendment and continue to look for ways to refine it in the future to both make it grower friendly as well as advance science. Probably worth noting, we've only had about 6 appeals over the last 2 years. I think 4 appealing 2022 data and 2 appealing 2023 data. So it's not a service that most people are using. I am assuming that's because they feel like they are getting a fairly decent number with the satellite measurement. But we offer it anyway.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Supervisor.
Yeah, just wanted to find out if we've had the opportunity to vet this with growers or.
Sure, there is one grower in particular who is able, with these refinements, could make an appeal, and he has no issues with accessing telemetry or with having a little tour of his farm.
Right, it actually, these amendments actually provide more options for the, which is, as I've commented many times, I love the idea of options. I just want to make sure we're getting that information out to them. And the idea of having staff go and look at that's optional as well.
There is a requirement for access in this revision. However, this has not been an issue in the past. People want to prove that things are working.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're vetting this with the farmers, because I don't know how I would feel about having people pop onto my land.
Well, no one's popping onto anybody's land, right?
Okay. There's a process in it, and
in every case, when we are going onto private property, we are calling, asking for permission.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Enter, we are often accompanied by.
That's what I wanted to hear. I don't want to hear that we're showing up with badges and saying, I'm county, I need to look at your home.
No, no one is doing that.
Yeah, okay, good.
Are you sure?
Well, and I think it's important that whoever goes out there is trained well in je ne sais quoi, that they understand the art of working with the public.
I think that's right. I mean, one of the benefits for the new staff that we've hired over the last year is that they've developed relationships with growers, and growers want to show them what they have going on. So it's
please and thank you, and smiles go a long way toward disseminating any future problems.
Mr. Chairman, one question.
Yes.
Regarding the appeals, are these appeals coming from one person? Are they all different people? We have, I don't want to say repeat offenders, but do we have the same people that do it over and over? Can you provide some insight on that?
Sure. So of the 6, we have one person who's done it a couple of years, two out of the times, and then the rest are different folks.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Very good. If there's no other questions from my colleagues, are there?
Yeah, just one more question,
Yes,
if you might, Chair. And so with those appeals, I think for my understanding, but for the public's understanding, staff has provided some flexibility in the way we're looking at electricity and the way we're looking at reporting from Air Pollution Control District. I think specifically the comments I received were in regards to, if we're looking at no electricity, that might be difficult for some farmers because they have lights and other things to help protect their infrastructure. And then with the APCD, there are some concerns of going out and making sure the equipment is still operational. While they may not be pumping water, they still need to turn it on. So that might create some difficulties. But my understanding is staff has provided some flexibility in that with the growers, and I would hope that would continue. Is that correct?
That is correct, with a minor modification that we have an outside party who's evaluating it, and the outside party is exercising what I think is professional judgment. So if there is nominal use, that is seen as a 0.
Okay, Thank you.
When you've got a pump on, it's noticeable. I mean, it's a lot of energy that it goes out. I've got one pump that uses 60,000, it's actually closer to 70,000 kilowatt hours a year.
Yes,
That's
so it's
noticeable.
pretty clear if you're pumping or not.
Yep.
All right, very good. With that, are there any members of the public who have a comment regarding this item? Anybody online? Okay, we'll bring the item back for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes,
Motion approved 5-0.
thank you. And item 6L.
Discussion and consideration of entering into a memorandum of understanding with River Partners for a vegetation management project with the Madera County Flood Control and Water Conservation Agency and authorize the chairman to sign.
Good morning again. I'm Stephanie Agneson, Director of Water and Natural Resources. Here we're operating as flood control. This is an MOU with River Partners, which is a non-governmental organization that specializes in arundo removal.
Yay.
And this is $1 million grant that they have received for work in Madera County removing arundo on the Ash, Brenda, and Fresno River. They're hopefully starting with the project levies, which are the parts where there is the most attention focused by the feds and the states down by the bypass. So with this agreement, they will be able to work on our behalf, and we will facilitate getting access to the properties where there are existing easements. Happy to take your questions.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions regarding this item?
Just a comment. I couldn't be happier about this. You know, I beat on this drum all the time. There's just so many problems that can be solved by removing arundo. I don't know why they had it in their mind to put it in there in the first place, because it has really nothing to do with free clear channels. It's more about stabilizing the banks, but it created a huge issue. And I think they could have done other things to stabilize the banks without putting arundo in there. Just what a mistake that was, and continues to be. It's a $1 trillion mistake, because I think over multiple years, it could easily cost that in the long run, because not only due to having to remove it and maintenance it and continue to work with that problem, but also the pinch points it's created that cause bust outs and insurance claims and farms that were wiped out and roads that were wiped out. And if you add all that up over time, it's a lot of money, a lot of time. So thank you. Really appreciate this.
Are there any other comments from my colleagues? If not, I'll open it up to the public. Any comments? No? All right, well, I'll bring the item back for
Motion
action.
to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes,
Motion approved 5-0.
thank you. And now we'll go to pending legislation. The first item is 8A.
Discussion and consideration to ratify a letter to the Bureau of Reclamation regarding the Central Valley Water Project.
Thank you. This is a letter forwarded on the 6th of September over the signatures of most of our partner counties around us to the Bureau of Reclamation, as noted earlier, to improve our access to water in the Central Valley.
Very good. Any questions regarding this item? Any members of the public? Anybody online? I'll bring the item back for action.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Poythress?
Yes,
Motion approved 5-0.
thank you. 8B.
Discussion and consideration to ratify a letter to Governor Newsom regarding Central Valley water supply.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very similar letter, only to our state contact, the governor, from the same coalition with the same signatories on it, related to water supply to the Central Valley.
Move to approve. We gotta go out for public comment or?
We can do the motion and then take it up.
Yeah.
to public comment.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any members of the public that have a comment regarding this item? Seeing and hearing none?
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes,
Motion approved 5-0.
thank you. And item 8C.
Discussion and consideration to ratify a letter of opposition to Yosemite National Park for the current visitor access management plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This letter was drafted last week and submitted as the comment period closed on the 30th of September. Therefore, we're asking for your ratification of this letter today. It's addressed to Cicely Muldoon, the Chief Superintendent of Yosemite National Park, and is related to their proposed and or ongoing visitor access management plan. They requested public comments. The drafted language notes the concerns that we have in our county related to this management plan and things that we felt like needed greater consideration versus what they had proposed. I will note we did have some difficulty uploading the PDF to their portal, so the text was uploaded with your signature on there. It's kind of odd. You had to go through 4 pages to get to the one where you could actually click the button to submit the comments, but we persevered.
Excellent.
You saying the federal government has some functionality
It's
issue?
a very beautiful website, but if you didn't really keep going, you wouldn't have found it. So,
Excellent. Thank you
Move
very
to approve.
much.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any members of the public who have any comments regarding VAMP? Seeing and hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor McCauley?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Wamhaugh?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Poitras?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to supervisor and staff reports, and I'll start to my right. Supervisor Wamhoff.
Didn't have it up quite yet. Last week, me and a few of my colleagues attended the San Joaquin Valley Regional Association Conference of Counties. Is that right? Did I get it
You
right?
know what? You're good. I never
Close
get it
enough.
right.
Sure.
In Kern County, and it was informative. Had some good speakers and some great networking with our own Valley folks. So it's a great opportunity that we get to discuss actual regional items instead of just talking about state or federal items. And I am happy to announce that we added a lot of temporary improvements to Avenue 12 in front of Riverstone. Part of that includes restriping the area, adding a turn pocket and a temporary signal right there. Makes that area quite a bit safer for the time being before we start the full Avenue 12 build out. And going over my meetings here. Wasn't prepared for that one. Threw me off guard.
We're jamming through the pending legislation.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for now.
All right, very good. If you need to announce something else, let me know. Supervisor Gonzalez.
I just want to thank the staff that put together all of the activities that were happening last week, from the picnic in the park to the ribbon cutting at the park. And I know we have a lot of staff that works on the Old Timers Day Parade and all the activities with that. So just want to thank them for their hard work. And it was really fun. I was actually in the sheriff's tank, which afterwards I couldn't hear anything. But the baby and I and my husband were in that big tanker on Saturday. And so that was fun. And I said to myself, well, if something were to happen, I would ask the sheriff if I could hang out in there, because I think that can survive a lot of craziness. Anyway, so thank you to the sheriff for for hosting us and the fire department as well. So that's all.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor McCauley.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was not able to attend the San Joaquin Regional Association of Counties Conference. Did have the pleasure of attending the Rural County Representatives of California Conference the week prior, where we got to hear some great speakers about vacation rentals as well as fire resiliency, biomass, very relevant conference for especially my district. Be happy. Nothing else to report.
Very good. Thank you very much, Supervisor Rogers.
I attended the Regional Health Authority, what we refer to as the RHA. We govern over $2 billion now for the Tri-County area in healthcare response. That's a lot of money, and it just seems to be still growing in every aspect. Also was able to address the new employees for employee orientation this last week while you guys were at the conference and kind of took your place there, substitute. Hopefully I did a good job. We're still using your icebreaker, so it still very effective.
I'm sure you inspired them.
Well, I tried to. Probably didn't do what you as good as you would have done, but you always do a great job with that. Appreciate it. And then I want to apologize. I missed the employees luncheon, but I had a funeral and I was engaged with that the entire day. Dear friend of ours, Ellie Vlatt. What a great memorial too for her and her family, and was just really honored to be able to take such a big part in that memorial, and with my friends and her family. And she was like a second mom to me, as I mentioned a couple of days ago. So it was a good send off for her. And what one of the highlights to me was they had a recording of her typical sign off, because when she would call me, she'd say, "I love you, bye." And they had that on the screen at the close of the video. So I think everybody in the audience was touched by her. Really, there was 400 or 500 people there. Really great for a very elderly woman who's still having a big impact, very sharp. Every phone call was sharp, so it was great. Thank you.
Mr. Varney.
Yeah, I also attended SJVRACC in Bakersfield. They did an excellent job hosting, but they don't have Bass Lake. So next year we will be meeting in the county of Fresno. The employee picnic went off great. I want to thank the committee that puts that together. I guess I'll specifically thank Yvette Gomez for driving that committee and working on that event for Friday. I think it was well attended. We've received good feedback from that, and appreciate those of you who were able to attend the ribbon cutting for Courthouse Park Saturday morning. I thought it was a great opportunity to have that right before the old timers parade, and I think it was well appreciated. The park certainly looks different with a really nice playground there versus an old jail building. So
Just gonna have to do something about that, the heat coming from that tarmac at
yeah,
the play area. I
not
don't
much we can do with that, but I think it.
I don't know if we could apply for a grant or something to kind of get a kind of a covering or something, because it's pretty oppressive. I mean, I think in 10 years it'll be shade, but between now and then, anyway,
Right.
just a thought.
All right.
Yes, council.
No report. Thank you, Chairman.
Clerk of the board. Okay, very good. And with that, we will move back into closed session.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there was one thing I needed to report out. I also attended RCRC, attended lunch at the park and the Old Timers Parade as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. We're back from closed session. Council, are there any reportable actions?
Chairman, there is no reportable action from closed session.
Very good. Thank you very much. And we shall adjourn the meeting and everybody have a great rest of the day.